Greetings, everybody. This is Serpentine451 here, and welcome to another episode of Weeb Warriors. And joining me, like always, is my good friend Jordan. How are you doing tonight, Jordan?
Hanging in there, Tony.
Yeah, well, last week we didn't do an episode because I had a family obligation, which we were celebrating the birthday of my grandmother. And she is doing quite well for her age.
Good to hear.
Anyway, so let's get to the shows this week. We're going to be, after this episode drops, we're going to be dropping a show, and we're going to be adding a show to our review Rolex, so to speak. Yes. So let's actually get to those reviews. So what is on your queue first, Jordan?
All right, so on my queue first, I have That Time I Reincarnated as a Slime, Episode 6, Shizu, and Episode 7, Conqueror of Flames. These two episodes have been the most crucial, and I mean that in the sense of just sheer, well, there's a lot of story that gets added in these two episodes. It really sets the tone of a lot of things. We also get to figure out who the fuck the Demon Lord is, but also the nature of how Shizu came to this world and the conditions that she's lived under them. Very powerful, very dark. Honestly, episode 6 did not prepare me for the fuckery that I would see in episode 7.
And I can agree with you there. Essentially, we're more introduced to Shizu as a character in her titled episode, which is episode 6, where she joins up with an adventuring party to go and investigate the forest, where Remu and his goblin village, or should I say goblin army?
Yes, now Reard is now the Goblin Lord, chief of all the other Goblin chieftains which have come to join his village, city, kingdom.
His own goblin kingdom.
Pretty effectively, yes.
And they worship Remu like a god.
I mean, if he's not a god, I don't know what is, but yeah.
I don't know either, but we also get, we see Remu show hospitality to the adventurers that came to the Goblin Village, and we get to see Remu and Shizu interact with each other in episode 6, where we see a little bit of the inner beast dwelling within her in that episode, where it comes out in episode 7, where she is grafted to a fire spirit known as Ifrit, or Ifrit, I should say.
Ifrit is extremely powerful. Just him coming onto the scene was both frightening and amazing. And then when he dispatches that wizard in the next episode.
Oh, yeah.
I've never seen such casual disrespect for another person's abilities before in my entire life.
Yeah, definitely. It's just no respect whatsoever. And then you have in episode 7 where, well, after we learn that Shizu came to this world because she was a summoned hero, which is different from a reincarnated one. And she was someone that was about to die during a bombing raid during a war, which I would only assume would be World War II.
So I believe that the math ends up working out that yeah, she is a survivor of one of the World War II bombing raids, because if you look around at the architecture and things, and then given how when she made her appearance as the hero, I think that the timelines coincide.
Yep, and since she was burned quite badly.
Yes. I'm honestly surprised she healed, but I guess it is a world of magic, and she's bound to the fire spirit.
Yeah, and it would make sense that she'd be healing quickly from burns. And so going into episode 7, when Ifrit just causes damage and disrespects people, Remu thought to himself, how the hell am I going to stop this guy?
Oh my goodness. And so this is important for a few things. So we get to actually see more of the adventuring party's personality and their abilities. Uh, their leader, who I originally sort of dismissed as a generic background character, has a lot of heart. He definitely took that salamander suicide explosion to the back while protecting his people. Uh, that shows a lot of class. They also work very well as a team, and their mage is fairly powerful with her icicle lance, or was it spear? Either way, her spells are fairly decent. They're actually rather well put together. Also, that shield design is actually just really cool. I like that a lot.
I thought it looked really cool as well, to be honest with you.
And in doing that, we've got to see a little peek into how magic works on like the highest level in their world, right? There's obviously the very anime-esque magic circles, which define where magic will manifest, and then it has some effect. But it does seem limited, I suppose. There's a very I guess a lot of times when I watch things in anime, I try to tease out what maybe the mechanics of that are within the world, and I think that time reincarnated slime obeys very set things. Even Rimuru's absurd amount of power can't take her icicle lance and do something too wildly absurd with it. His icicle shotgun is effectively just mass casting the same spell.
That much is true.
Which is good because it means that it obeys some degree of principle, right? It's not like a smartphone or whatever where we just throw shit
Bullshit
together.
happened.
Yeah, it's just like, well, fuck it, let's do it.
And then, didn't you find it funny that Remu thought he was going to be burnt alive because he forgot, oh, I'm a slime. I have thermal resistance and cold. So I nullify flames.
Yeah, it was sort of funny when he forgot that, because honestly, I didn't think about it all too much my damn self. But lo and behold, he did have it.
Yep, and I thought, wait a minute, he's probably gonna like forget the fact that he's immune to certain things because he is a slime after all. Just made me laugh uncontrollably, and then he imprisoned Ifrit with the dragon that he's trying to figure out to break the seal for. Daedra, I think is his name. The Cinder Dragon.
Something to that effect. The Dragon of Storms. And it's not like he forgot. I think the spell is just stupidly powerful.
Yeah.
So it's taking him a while to figure out, or I guess maybe Vedra's taking a while to figure out how to break out from the inside, since they have to do like this two-prong thing. The important thing is that my dude's predator ability is fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, it is strong.
Because he ate Ifrit and then was able to separate them, which I imagine most mortal magic could not have done. Otherwise, she would have just long since been depossessed.
Definitely, yeah.
Flip side, though, I wonder how the hell she is known as a hero. If I had seen that shit in a battlefield, I wouldn't consider her nothing but the fucking enemy. Like, it doesn't matter who you killed, you need to stay that ass away from me.
Definitely, yeah. I think she's a hero in the sense that, hey, if you have a powerful summon at your command, you'll be stopping a lot of conflicts.
Yeah, she probably stocks a lot of conflicts and kingdoms and everything else. Natural ecosystem, whole mountain ranges, the march of fucking time. I don't know, but it was ridiculous. And I guess it really sets up just how very powerful the Demon Lord is, because he just casually commanded Ifrit.
Oh yeah, and we have to add another bit to her Porshisu's backstory where when she unknowingly gave a creature a name, and it was just growling at the demon lord, and he was like, yeah, I'm not dealing with this. Burn them alive.
I was wildly unprepared for that. When I saw the animal growling, I was like, oh, this isn't going to end well. And then she just conflagrates them both.
Yeah.
And it's not like one of those DBZ fade into black, will fade into white sort of disintegrations. Oh no, you get some detail on this death. And I was like, wait.
Yeah, they become ash. Both the animal and the friend that she made. Both ash. Both gone. Much like the parrot person. Yeah, I didn't really. Yeah, the parrot person, he was basically fried chicken at the end of it.
Yeah, he was just about worthless.
He was done. So if that's all we have for that time I got reincarnated as a slime, what's next, Jordan?
Goblin Slayer,
Yeah.
episode 6, Goblin Slayer in Watertown, and episode 7, Onward Unto Death.
Okay. So essentially in episode 6, our party goes to Watertown to stop a goblin infestation at the behest of the Sword Maiden.
Yes, who is the Archbishop of the Supreme God of the Supreme God's religion. The Supreme God being the God of Law, if I remember correctly.
Yep. And we see in this particular episode, the goblins are being taught how to use boats and other tools and wear armor. And while they were fighting it underneath the city. Which, that was fucking crazy. And now, Jordan.
Yeah.
What sense does it make to have fucking giant alligators in your city sewer system?
So one of the things so 0 cents, but I think the thing that we actually see Goblin Slayer try to touch on in episode 7 is that when you have a sewer system of this particular size, which is ridiculously large, you inevitably have monsters in it, right? Because they're drawn to the abundance of food, and there is a lot of space. It's dark. It's near people. There's a lot of shit to steal. It draws people in.
Right.
But no giant rats, no cockroaches, just a bunch of goblins and a swamp dragon.
Yeah.
Very odd.
Mm-hmm.
I think the swamp dragon might, I mean, if I had to guess, a swamp dragon doesn't really just appear out of fucking nowhere. I think that it was supposed to be there as a guardian of the crypt that we find in episode 7.
Oh, you would be right about that. And a powerful monster like that would make sense for a guardian of the crypt. Even though the crypt does get desecrated by goblins.
Yeah, but I think that ultimately what the story arc is trying to show is that these goblins, their presence here is not natural. They did not end up here by their own power. Someone apparently very powerful, at least enough to move an entire mass of goblins into the city, did this.
Yep, definitely. And then in episode 7,
cool, buddy.
Oh,
so episode 7, they return to the sewer after having identified that yes, there are goblins here and killed a bunch of them. And they're going to find the rest of them, drive them out, smash them, kill them, make them into a stew. You know, good old Goblin Slayer stuff.
Yep.
They find a mausoleum dedicated to the adventurers who fought alongside the side of order during some ancient great war, which is significant to the background of the story.
Mhm.
Uh, they
It's
go
like
in.
400 to 500 years ago.
Yeah. So they go into the crypt mausoleum, they find their way through, they end up falling into a trap, as always. The goblins seal them in a room and try to fill it with poison gas that is, as in typical fashion with goblins, not intended to kill you, but to make it much easier to mutilate you afterwards. Of
Oh yeah.
course, Goblin Slayer being himself is carrying fucking concrete with him. Uh,
Yeah, and to make sure that he was doubly prepared, he also had a canary on him because by his logic, and the way he explained it is that canaries can detect poison.
which is true to an extent. Canaries are very sensitive to these sort of poisonous gas leaks, which is why miners used to bring them into caves. If your canary dies, you need to get out.
Yeah. And that canary did not die, but that canary made a whole bunch of noise.
Yes. So I would also make a whole bunch of noise if I started smelling poisonous gas that was going to kill my ass.
Oh,
Um,
true, yeah.
so that makes a good bit of sense. But I mean, if your canary is dead, you have fucked all the way up.
Yep, and at least they survived for quite a bit until the big boy came up.
Yeah, so essentially what happens is that now trapped in the room with the plugged poison gas outlets, the gas backs up, kills the goblins that are doing it, and the goblins try to charge the room that they barricaded themselves into. Having used a coffin to block the door, they then stand a few yards, feet, what have you, meters back behind Priestess's protection shield, and they begin attacking the goblins through the door using elf archers' bow. They eventually push through the door and start getting this work from Goblin Slayer and, uh, well, the Dragon Kin. Yes.
I would say he's a lizard man priest.
Okay, we'll call him Lizard Priest. Beautiful thing about Goblin Slayer, which actually makes it a lot easier to talk about, is that none of these characters actually have names.
This is,
Um, it's
these are facts.
it's probably not something that you would have immediately noticed,
Yeah,
but none of the main characters have names. Goblin Slayer is Goblin Slayer or Orkbolg or Beard Cutter, but yeah, no,
or sure Goblin Slayer.
no, yeah, but it's Goblin Slayer, Priestess being Priestess, and no one actually refers to the elf or the dwarf by anything beyond their race. And I don't think they call the lizard anything ever.
Oh no, the dwarf calls him Scaly.
Ah, great. Yes. Uh, But either way, so it's a very effective strategy for a while until a Goblin Champion comes up. Uh, Goblin Champion is massive, carrying a doubly massive sword, is strong, is smart, is ruthless. Goblin Slayer and Scaly putting in a hurt on these goblins. Goblin Slayer moves to fight the Goblin Champion, goes for a leaping stab into the head, and the champion just grabs another goblin by the fucking head and uses him as a damn shield.
Yep,
That shield goblin gets gored, and then the champion goblin crushes its fucking head with its hand.
yep.
Goblin Slayer lands in a loose roll and gets fucking annihilated. When I say he smashes him into the fucking ceiling to fall into a crypt,
Oh no, that had enough force to send someone flying everywhere. Bones broken, everything done.
yeah, when Goblin Slayer was easily on his last leg in that exact moment. We're as he's coughing up blood, surrounded by his own viscera, effectively. Um, Priestess loses concentration. The protection spell breaks. A bunch of goblins attack. Elf is on the verge of being raped. Dwarf goes to her defense. Priestess gets captured by the champion, who then takes a chunk out of her arm just for the fuck of it.
Yeah,
She's screaming. Goblin Slayer's dying. Priest Elf Ranger is not looking hot.
no.
And the dwarf
course,
is doing
Bailey
the
is
best
just
to
getting
fight his way to
martyred by
her.
goblins.
But oh, and let me just give some credit to that the dwarf is supposed to be a mage, but when I tell you he was putting in work with that axe.
Oh yeah, he was putting in work with the axe, the sling.
Oh no, he was destroying people with the sling.
Yeah.
I've never had much respect for slings. Not like in real life because I wouldn't want to be hit with a projectile, but in video
No.
games and things of that nature, slings are shit. But my dude was definitely beating the hell out of people with those rocks.
Yeah. He's just putting in work regardless.
And then Scaly's trying his hardest to fight off all the goblins, but he ain't got the juice. Uh, so everything's going to shit, and Goblin Slayer is dying. Uh, Goblin Slayer, being the hard ass that he fucking is, reaches all the way into his inner hatred. The hate flows through him, the dark side of the fucking force. And he gets up, drinks a health potion, and begins fucking murdering.
Yeah, he stabs his shield into one goblin's head, splitting it in two. It just goes to murder people.
He
Yeah,
picks up a wig that the goblins had used to make a skeleton look human to trap them in the room originally, and uses it as a piano wire effectively and starts strangling the champion to death.
yeah. And then as the coup d'etat of that, of giving the champion his last tries, he just punches it in the face, stabs his whole fist into its eye.
And then I think he takes a piece of his fucking brain with his hand. No, he takes the eye in his hand and he throws it on the ground. He's like, "Who's next? Is it you? Or maybe you?" And then he's like limping forward, spear in hand, to fucking gore these goblins. They all fucking run.
They're like, no, I'm not dealing with this shit. But they get fucking destroyed by Scaly, the dwarf, the elf that get their second wind. And good old Scaly, he heals the priestess.
Yes. So good on him, right?
Yeah.
She is recovering slowly. She apologizes to Goblin Slayer for being useless. He tells her not to worry about it, and then he dies.
Yep. Just fade like all the life that he had left, his last bit of adrenaline, conked out.
Yeah, and I mean that's it. That's literally the end of the episode. He died. I don't know what else you want me to tell you.
Yeah,
Or he is presumed to be dead. It is technically still episode 7, so you know.
Yeah. They're like,
It's gonna be a long tale. That'd be a long ass funeral episode.
oh yeah, definitely. And then you would have just fucking a lot of crazy nuttiness because there's still stuff in the manga that I hope we can get to because holy shit.
Yeah, honestly, this is a great arc, but it's not even the best arc. Goblin Slayer is one of those things that just keeps getting better and better.
Oh, yeah. And also the side story, year 1. Oh my god.
Haven't read it. I will though.
Oh, year 1 is fantastic. It's 17 chapters in, and you basically get to see the evolution of where Goblin Slayer began to where we is today, and how he became so efficient at killing goblins because his master in the ways of killing goblins is this rat-looking individual, and he basically says, use your hatred to kill these things because they're brainless.
It's funny because the master is teased in the flashback scene.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
But that's not important. Don't spoil too much. That's it for Goblin Slayer. I look forward to episode 8.
All right. I know, so am I. I think much like Megalobox was for winter of this year, Goblin Slayer is just that show where it's just keen. We will make sure to watch this show. We are anticipating it each week.
Yeah, honestly, it'd be a toss-up if someone made me like decide if Megalobox or Goblin Slayer was the best anime of the year. Oh, yeah, that'd be a difficult choice. But we'll see how Goblin Slayer ends, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
definitely. And we also have some individuals when it comes to Goblin Slayer that basically say that try to look for the deeper meaning behind the series itself. And I'm thinking to myself, can't we just have a dark fantasy that shouldn't have any deeper meaning to it? Can't
yeah, I
we
mean,
enjoy a ride?
it's easy to assume that when presented with such dark material that there's some greater lesson to be learned. Perhaps it's about not underestimating the small evils of the world because they in fact compound and then you suddenly lose everything. Or how people are concerned only with the big picture and miss out on the little things that they could do to change the world. For instance, if every adventurer actually took on goblin slaying missions, a bunch of forest people wouldn't be tortured and raped every year by them,
Yep.
or less, or like novice adventurers wouldn't get their asses eaten out in hives and then raped. But
True.
hey,
But
that's the world. But I also agree with you, Tony. I think this is just one of those series that's just dark for the sake of being dark and is good at doing it.
yeah, definitely. And the way I kind of view things, if I just want to enjoy a series, even though it has these darker elements, it is gory, it is visceral, but it's set in a world where these things happen all the time. We can't really sugarcoat it all that much. We can't show it all, like, you get what I'm trying to say here. It's like they're not sugarcoating the things that they're showing in this world. That dark shit happens to everybody. There's some moments of light and levity, but there's a lot of dark shit going on. But anyway, let's move on to another one of our shows that we're reviewing. So what's next on your queue, Jordan?
Zombie Land Saga, Episode 6, because it's Sentimental Saga, Episode 7, because it's Zombie Mental Saga. All right. So these two episodes actually have to really set up the Junko Ai conflict resolution sort of arc, where they are both vying with the past as they try to move into the future.
Yeah, and
And I'm sorry, I was just reminded of the Digimon Frontier opening song with that line. Uh, Either way, so having both been previously idols, having both been idols in their previous life, they have some degree of baggage revolving around the nature of what it means to be an idol, as well as the means in which they died and what they left behind.
yeah, and
Different for Junko than I, because I died maybe 5 years ago, 10 years ago, not even, but Junko died 30.
yeah, because Junko is a Showa era idol, so she would have been popular in the 1980s or so.
Yeah.
And she was a solo act, so she never worked with a group before. And her perspective on being an idol, and she says herself, I don't really get these fan meet and greets. Shouldn't an idol just be watched on the TV or just be enjoyed from afar and not have any interaction? Whereas I is a Heisei idol, so she's a more current idol and is more exposed to being a part of a unit, and she is exposed to what the modern idol culture is. And so it's basically a clash of their different perspectives. And learning how both of these girls died is very, very sad. Well,
Yeah. I don't remember how Junko went. I is kind of hard to forget, but
yeah, Junko died. It's not explicitly shown, but she died in a plane crash.
yes, I remember now. It was kind of not rushed, but it had a lot less impact.
Yeah, and and that's kind of and part of one of the ways I like one of the things I like about the show is trying to figure out how how the other characters died, as morbid as that sounds, because I'm very curious in how their lives, like their previous lives, gone. Like the moment of their deaths kind of happened and led to them looking the way that they do as zombies. And Junko being a patchwork, so a crash made sense for her. And then I covered in bandages because this poor girl was struck by lightning.
Yo, she really got lightning.
Yeah, God decided, you know what? I had enough of your debauchery. The lightning's coming.
Said fuck everything in that general direction. I Yeah, no, that was just some crucial shit. I don't expect that we'll actually get a whole lot of background on the others because I get the very distinct impression that they're mostly just there for show.
I think so too. And you can kind of get how some of them died contextually.
Well, I would like to know what happened with Yugiri because she seems very graceful, young.
Listen,
And doesn't she have a neck wound?
yeah. From what I can kind of ascertain is that she might have been decapitated at some point in time. Because she's the oldest zombie out of them all. Where she is in between the Shogunate and the Meiji era.
Ooh, that doesn't sound okay. She sounds like one of those poor victims of wrong place, wrong time.
I would assume so. And then we still have little to no information on Tai-chan, but I think I would keep it that way.
Yeah, it's interesting because I know Tai-chan is sort of a comedic relief character whose mind has never come back out of like the zombie mental state, but I am curious as to who the hell she is.
I mean,
none of them seem to have been brought back for no reason. Even if she doesn't have her mind, she has to be someone.
Yeah, someone to maybe to Kotaro. That's kind of my whole theory on it. But who knows exactly. But episode 7, fucking episode 7. Oh my god.
My whole thing was that when they got struck at the end, that honestly, that's what did it for me.
Yeah. Yeah. No, what did it for me after they get struck by lightning and they basically obtain auto-tune and they start shooting beams out of their hands when they start pointing at people. I about died when I saw that. I'm like, oh my god. But did you find it funny that Tai-chan was imitating Saki?
Yes, I did find that funny, but you know, monkey see, monkey do. Maybe her motor neurons are still working. I'm not really sure what's up with that, but if she was gonna imitate anyone, I think Saki was the funniest.
Yeah, definitely. But I did, and with I trying to like hold it out as best she could and actually trying to do the beginning part of their first song, I felt bad for the poor girl. And then Juko's like, nah, I got you, girl.
Yeah, she was definitely struggling. If Junko hadn't stepped in there, that would have been super awkward. Although it's still a little awkward. I can't imagine that anyone would see that show and be like, oh yeah, no, that shit went flawlessly.
Yeah, no, they kind of like were rocky at the start, but at the end, holy shit.
But you know what bothers me about that entire singing?
Yeah.
The other girls get their full animation.
Yeah.
And then the main characters are 3D.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why?
I don't know.
Why?
I don't know. Idol shows want to put them in 3D. I don't know why they do these things.
Because it's just like, it's infinitesimally better than the first episode CG. Don't get me wrong.
True.
But it's so out of place, and I don't understand.
I don't understand it either, Jordan. It's just what idol shows do at some like random intervals of time. It drives me up the wall crazy. I don't understand it. Oh my god. But and then the next episode, from the sounds of it, is going to be a Lily focused episode, so we might get to learn more about her.
I don't watch the teaser, but sure. I'm surprised that there's a Lily-centric episode, to be totally honest, having just made my comment about background characters. But maybe everyone will get a spotlight episode.
Yeah, maybe, maybe not. Who knows? But at least, well, we never. Usually, every episode has like a standout Taichan moment. Episode 6 for me is when they like the audience for like one of their performances after they get their before they get their red uniforms, and they're doing the fan meet and greet after their performance. Everyone's like, "Oh, it's Coco-chan." No, it's Coco-san, said Saki, and then you have fucking Tai-chan doing the cock-a-doodle-doo. Like, god damn it, fucking Tai-chan. But I think that's all for Zombieland Saga. It's still going on pretty strong. One of my favorite shows this season. Definitely enjoyable. The best bit of comedy and one of the first shows that I watch before we start these episodes of Weeb Warriors. Definitely the first one I watch. And then it's Goblin Slayer. And then it's usually at that time I got reincarnated as a slime. And what is the next show, Jordan?
Next show is Rascal Does Not Dream of Bunny Girl Senpai, the fucking sleeper hit of the series. Well, this season, not series. We have episode 6, This World You Choose, and episode 7, Adolescence Paradox.
Episode 6 is the end of the Koga arc, the Tomoe Koga arc. We essentially have our typical beach episode when it comes to anime, where Sakuta takes Tomoe out on a date, where they basically repeat the same thing over and over again, if memory best serves me.
It does. That is correct. He takes her out on a date to the beach. They have a good time. At the end, they say she's going to say that they broke up over summer break. He goes home, wakes up the next morning. It's the same damn day. Rinse, repeat. But she does not tell him that. She makes it seem as if it isn't happening. She lies.
Like, oh, what? It's not really so. And then in reality, she just wants to make their fake relationship into reality. And he has to turn her down. And she became overly emotional.
Well, I wouldn't say overly emotional. An appropriate degree of emotional.
Yeah, but the way I see it, she did not take the rejection well. But it gave her the confidence that she needed to basically get rid of the dick bag that's been chasing after her. I mean, am I not wrong there, Jordan?
I didn't catch that.
Like, the end of the episode, basically, she turns down that guy that's been consistently pursuing her for the first portion of this arc.
Yeah, at the end, she finally handles it, and ultimately the reason she didn't want to deal with it in the first place is that she was concerned how her reputation would shift, having rejected him formally.
Yeah. And I think at this point now, she
to think about, because it's like, doesn't that shit happen every day? Like
everyday life, man.
Um, he was also a shitbag, so
Yeah, he was a shitbag. So
I wasn't too concerned. But yeah, that's honestly what happened with Coco Tomoe. They're still friends to an extent. She may still be in love with him, but she has, you know, accepted.
trying to move on.
That,
She's trying to move on.
yes, she's trying to live her best life, and that's all we can ever do, right? We cannot control who we like, and we cannot control if they like us back, but we can control how we act when we do have that knowledge.
Mm-hmm. Definitely true. And then episode 7 is the start of, well, best girl in your honest opinion.
Yeah, Futaba.
Yeah, Futaba. Her
Rise
first
of
name is
Futaba.
though.
All right. I mean, so the crux of this episode is pretty straightforward. They setting it up with the introduction of uh, Shoto Makinohana. I don't think that's correct, but either way, they set it up with the introduction of a girl who has a similar appearance and name, and the exact same name as the girl that Sakata supposedly fell in love with so many years ago on the beach. And you think it's going to be about her, but oh no, 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 you be fucking wrong. In fact, what you end up finding out is that Futaba, who we first encounter with her hair up, glasses off, and no, she's still wearing her school uniform,
And she's not wearing her lab coat.
But not wearing her lab coat. Has been duplicated. There are two of her. She has a doppelganger, a quantum entangled duplication of herself.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
it's more, and the way they explained it, it's quantum teleportation.
Yeah, which is odd and also technically incorrect, but whatever, right?
Yeah.
No one really understands quantum mechanics.
Nor do I.
The important thing to get is that Futaba, the biggest rejecter of the existence of adolescent syndrome, is now suffering from it. And in suffering from it, she has been forced out of her house and is now living with Sakata and my main girl, Kaide, who is second best girl. Fuck all the people that was mean to Kaide. Also, it's easy to forget that Kaide is not just a cute girl that walks around in
a panda onesie.
Yeah, and that she actually suffers from some real and deep psychological trauma. That like split second scene when Mai's phone goes off.
Oh my god, yeah.
Done.
Mm-hmm.
Done. But yeah, so Futaba is living with Sakata and Kaide, and because of that, Mai is also staying with them. So my boy Sakata is definitely living the good life as far as that is concerned.
Mm-hmm. And we also kind of have the reason why there's this duplicate of Futaba where she is presenting herself differently to Sakata's best friend. I think it's Kiminari, I think is his surname. I don't recall. I'm trying to remember the full name. The guy that it was playing basketball and the dude Futaba has a thing for. And the fact that this is also the guy whose girlfriend is a total bitch bag to our boy Sakata.
True. His girlfriend is sort of a mixed bag. She's kind of shit, kind of okay. At least she had the decency of warning Sakata about what Futaba's clone was doing.
Yeah, true.
Although I'm not totally convinced that it was expressly Futaba's clone.
Mm.
But I guess we'll get into that in a bit. in future episodes. The important thing is that the reason that Futaba and her clone separated is because of her repressed feelings for Sakata's friend, or their shared friend, which she has never actually gone out of her way to express, although he has demonstrated that he is aware of her feelings.
Mm-hmm. And that shows a lot of situational awareness when it comes to that guy.
Yeah, it's definitely a refreshing sort of take on the oblivious sort of love interest. He's feigning ignorance in an effort to spare her emotions, to appear as though he's not as cognizant as he truly is. Um,
Oh yeah, definitely. And then you
I
also
honestly feel that they should just play up more in anime, because it's a very reasonable thing to do, to not push someone into a situation that they're not comfortable with or are ready to face, by simply feigning ignorance of it until, well, that situation changes. Because his awareness of her feelings doesn't really change the fact that she hasn't said anything to him, so there's no reason to address it, especially since there can only be one answer, as he is a taken man.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, so I think that that's something that they should really deal with more in anime, instead of just having your protagonist be dumb as fucking bricks.
Yeah, definitely true. I can agree with you there.
But yeah, that is it for the animes that we actually are going to continue to review. We can speak pretty quickly on the anime that we're going to drop and the anime that we're bringing onto the fold. For those
And
of you
then
that
we
have
have
been,
our Otaku Soapbox question, which is something that we don't typically talk about here that often, but how certain shows are received here as compared to Japan, which one of the shows that we're going to be, the show that we're going to be adding on here is pretty popular in Japan, but it's not so popular here. But we'll get into that eventually. So let's start with the show that we're going to be axing from our review cycle here. Ulysses, Jeanne d'Arc, and The Alchemist Knight. Sure, we had a lot of high hopes for this show, but part of the reason is that, well, one, we feel a bit uncomfortable because Joan looks very young.
oh no, it's not a look. She actually is factually young.
That is, well, we are dealing with facts here, and it's not, and also the fact that our protagonist, as named in episodes 6 and 7, his name is Gilles de Rais.
Yeah. So for those who are unfamiliar with history, this is a man that is historically placed as Joan d'Arc's right-hand man, which makes perfect sense to make his character that. But he was also executed for torturing and murdering children.
Not only torturing, but some of the things he's done, he's murdered young boys, he's raped them, he
Yeah,
did
so
things to their corpses. Ugh.
really not the person you should be making.
Make into a protagonist.
Yeah, and then having them kiss a child. Maybe not, right?
Just no. Let's not do that.
Beyond that, the show is just really fundamentally flawed. It's got odd pacing, and it's not nearly as interesting as it potentially could be.
Yeah, and also it's rather dull.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the most interesting thing thus far, in my opinion, was when Philip had that damn like psychological flashback of her father on fucking fire.
Oh yeah, he's like fucking like Mufasa in the night sky.
Yeah, no, I was wildly unprepared for that.
Oh, definitely. I wasn't prepared for that either. But yeah, I think we're gonna call it an end to our reviews for this show in particular. It had promise, but it kind of ran its course with us. But a show that we will be adding is Quadruple S Gridman.
Yes.
So Jordan, since you were the one that found the show and basically told me that, why didn't you tell me that there was a Trigger anime out this season? I'm like, well, it was news to me. Saying we're not friends anymore because I didn't find this show, or I didn't say we should review it. God damn it, man.
So, Trigger anime this season out is Triple S Gridman, which is a sort of monster of the week mecha anime that has very distinctive sort of signing. No, that's not the word I want to look for. Help me out here.
It's a tokusatsu inspired show. It did get its actually Gridman itself is very popular in Japan. It's basically like Ultraman in a sense, where it kind of started. Well, Ultraman still is a very spandex heavy series with fighting kaijus and whatnot. Gridman is a very special case because it started in 1993 as a tokusatsu show that somehow evolved and got more popular as an anime series. Like, there was an anime adaptation of Gridman before this one, this year. And I just find it very fascinating. But with this one in particular, we have our protagonist, Yuta Hibiki, who is suffering from amnesia and is found one day by a girl named Rika. And with those two and Yuta's friend, what's the fucker's name? Fuck. The best friend. I forgot that guy's name. God damn it. They essentially go to Rika's family's junk shop where they find this old-ass computer, and our titular hero, Gridman, who can only be seen by Yuta at the moment, said that there's a kaiju coming. And this is all in the first episode where Gridman is summoned and he beats the shit out of a kaiju. And in typical tokusatsu fashion, since it's a very monster of the week, like Jordan said, you have just, as episodes progress, we get introduced to more characters. That these characters in particular, Samurai Caliber and a few other characters, they are actually armaments for Gridman. Which, so far, I've watched up to episode 5 for right now. Which, I gotta say, what are your initial thoughts on this show so far, Jordan?
I think that it's actually a fairly decent show. I won't say that it's amazing, but most of these shows are not. It's definitely interesting. I think it has a sort of broader appeal to a more mature audience given the nature of its villain, but it's still somewhat loose in its world building. I'm not overly sold on what the fuck's going on, but that's oftentimes the case with Trigger anime. I fully expect to be thrown for a full fucking loop by the end of it.
I can agree with you there. And also sometimes most tokusatsu shows don't typically have the best when it comes to like lore and backstory sometimes. It depends on the series though. With Super Sentai, you know for a fact what you're getting into. Kamen Rider is also pretty much the same thing. I have no real exposure to Ultraman, so I wouldn't really know on that one in particular.
Yeah.
But Kamen Rider and Super Sentai, I definitely know for a fact. It just depends on what the theme of that particular series would be. And I got to admit, like this, for this show in particular, I really like. I kind of like the way that this show presents its kind of how its world reset button. When kaijus land and kill particular targets that our villains, well, one of our villains chooses to kill, they're basically wiped from existence. Like they died at a different point.
Yeah, which is actually stupidly dark.
Yeah, and let's talk about our villain for this particular series. Akane is her name. And she is connected to a kaiju creating entity known as Alexis. And from what we can see about Kaide's Akane's background is that she is basically a shut-in with trash on the floor, collection, like an entire like rows of glass cases filled with kaiju figurines. And she hates people when people like treat her wrong or do something to hurt her in some way. She targets them first.
Yeah, which is fun. It's not funny because literally anything can piss her off.
Yeah, just anything sets her off, like being hit on by college dudes or having a volleyball accidentally hit her on the hand or getting cursed out by a teacher. The slightest thing will set this girl off. And it's terrifying. And plus, I gotta admit, I'm really enjoying like the armament characters. Some of them are actually pretty damn funny.
Yeah, no, they're pretty solid. I can't wait to see all of them.
Yeah.
Also, I just about died when they all tried to get summoned at once in the day.
Oh yeah, that shit was fucking hilarious.
It just lagged up. I'm just like, okay then.
No, as people who have experienced lag in various different points in our time, I'm like, man, that sucks.
Yeah, but my life has never been on the line.
Yeah, well, true. You're right about that, Jordan.
But yeah, actually, I think that that's more or less the gist of Gridman. Without getting into like an episode breakdown.
Yeah, but if we would do that, we would be taking a lot of time here to just do that. But I think we are pretty much covering our bases here. Then we can just we would just go into reviewing episode 8 properly, like we have been doing for the other shows.
Yes, I think that it'll be. I think that'll be the format moving forward. But the gist up to this point is that our main villain is trying to kill Gridman. Gridman is resisting, and she is becoming less and less patient and more bold.
Yeah, and with episode 5, she figures out that Yuta is Gridman.
Mm-hmm. So we can expect that there will be very directed consequences coming up in these next 2 or 3 episodes.
Definitely. And so to make this really quick, so we can end things here relatively soon here. The Otaku Soapbox question, well, discussion piece for this time around is that shows that we like here in the West could be very different and received differently in Japan and vice versa. Because there was something that was brought to my attention about how the shows are treated. And I'm not sure if you find any this interesting, Jordan, but I would like your 2 cents on it, though. Gridman is very popular in Japan. I mean, just as popular. Well, I think it's within, if memory best serves me, within the top 3 of the highest rated shows in Japan. Number 1, I think, is JoJo. And Gridman is as popular here in the West, but it's doing pretty well. And it's to the point where, in the reverse of this, Bunny Girl Senpai is very popular here in the West. And it's not so popular in Japan.
Yeah, I think it just has to deal. Well, it's not a just thing, I suppose. I think that our cultures are looking for different things in our anime.
Oh yeah, definitely, and I can agree with you there. And
Right?
the source that I found this in basically presented that due to our lists being somewhat different from each other, like placements of shows and whatnot, some fans in Japan and some fans in the West are basically calling each other's taste shit. You know, typical fan reactions, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that there's definitely some very clear distinctions that you can see between like Western and Japanese preferences as far as which animes um, end up having like large scale appeal. Many of the classic genres of animation are still very popular in Japan, like Gridman.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, definitely.
in America, there was never that real big craze for giant monsters, right? Like mechas are not a very big thing in America. Last time they were hot or like really hot button was Gundam, right? And I'm
Yeah,
not talking like Unicorn or Orphans. I'm talking G Gundam,
yeah, true.
Wing Gundam, right? Or Gundam Wing. Uh,
Man.
it's it's been a fucking minute.
hmm And you know
Yep.
what's really funny though, Jordan? Goblin
Uh,
Slayer is generally in the right, like for both Japanese and Western audiences. Goblin Slayer's like in the top 5 for the West and number 6 in Japan.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess so. It has a lot of. I think it has good appeal to a particular set of people,
Yeah,
but it's never going to have that sort of like broad mainstream, not necessarily quality. Um,
it's like the element that makes it more. It gives it it's
Accessible. I don't know.
more
Either way, the
accessible to a
important thing
broader
is that
audience.
yeah, the important thing is that it's too violent for everyone.
Very
It's
true.
going to turn off people regardless of how good it is, and it's pretty damn good. Um, but yeah, so some things that I see come out of Japan that I have to imagine have to be at least popular enough to have been made into an animation. I have very deep questions about. For instance, Ulysses, Joan of Arc, and Alchemist Knight. Someone sat down and decided, you know what? I'm gonna write an anime and or light novel about a pedophile. And then someone decided, you know what? We should animate this.
Or a game that, admittedly, its sequel isn't as terrifying and creepy. Uh, Conception, it became a thing and decided, well, since we didn't get the first game here in the West, which we might now because of the animation,
Please no.
but let me explain it to you like this. Uh, sure, I am not going to be I'm not going to be reviewing like watching the show because that Tanuki thing creeps me out. I don't appreciate it. There's a lot of things in this world that I don't appreciate, Jordan, and it's rapey Tanukis. I do not want to deal with it. But regardless, I think that yeah, it's all due to taste and cultural differences. But when we really look at our tastes, like Western and Japanese fans' tastes, when it comes to a lot of shows and where we place them, our lists are very synergetic, but it's just shows are placed differently when it comes to how popular it is in one country compared to one other sector, which is generally the argument here. But in all honesty, I just want to enjoy the things because I enjoy them, regardless of where they rank arbitrarily on a list. I mean, am I not wrong? Can we just enjoy anime without putting them on a tier list? Except for the ones that should be placed on a tier list?
I don't
Because,
know. I often find myself ranking anime not so much on a level of is this somehow, well, obviously there are things that are the best of a particular season or a year because they simply stand that high above the rest. Many of the anime I watch are simply okay. I've watched easily 500 different series or some other odd nonsense like that, which
Yeah,
is
we're about the same amount in terms of shows that we've watched.
yeah, which is weird because that's not even an exaggeration on my part. Most of them being okay, a lot of them actually forgettable for better or for worse. Like sometimes I'll go through my like Kitsu account and look at all the things that I've watched, and it's like, oh yeah, I remember that.
I
It's
know
just
the thing.
what the fuck happened in that again? Right, like some things just don't stick in my mind. I'm also not someone that dedicates things to memory all too often. So even if I have seen it, it would be if someone were asking me like, "Joy, you remember that scene from late random ass anime from back in like 2003?" No, I don't.
But here's something like a bit of news for you, Jordan. Toonami is actually going to be premiering Megalobox.
Yeah,
And they have
received
and they have some of the actors for the dub already like cast for and everything.
Solid, solid.
And KG Tang is the voice of Joe in the English dub.
Who?
KG Tang. Let me see what other shows he's been in. Okay. In he voiced. Okay. In the 2006 series of Berserk, he voiced Guts.
I've never seen Berserk in English, but okay.
He also voices Vegeta in Dragon Ball Super.
Never seen it.
He voices Hendrickson in The Seven Deadly Sins.
Never seen it in English.
A few things that...
It's just like, I swear you've heard him before.
Okay, let's see. He's in a lot of games too. He's just a very popular voice actor, actually. Yeah, and he's the voice of Joe. Fun times, right? But anyway, I think we will end this episode of Weeb Warriors here. Our usual plugs, check out Quentin's channel. And this time I left a link in the description below so people can actually check it out.
Yeah, Ninja Black Gaming HD. He updates every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I believe. Or at least is roughly around that period. Does gaming news and gaming reviews. He's also doing a playthrough of Dead Space, OG Dead Space.
Oh yeah, and I also left a link in the description for my Instagram account so you guys can see my cosplay and my cooking and how up to date it is. Which only reminds me, I need to buy that wig. God damn it. But anyway, catch you guys next time.